Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Cy Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Welcome. I'm Tessa, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Cy.
Thank you all so much for being here. Excited for today.
So I was rewatching Schitt's Creek as what is apt to do, and I do with some frequency because for me it is a way to just make myself feel better. And I was watching this episode, and can't think of the name of it, but there's a scene where Alexis and Twyla are getting ready to go out and pick up guys at the Wobbly Elm or whatever the bar is called. And they're getting ready, and Alexis is full on makeup and hair and jewelry and accessories and 6-inch heels and the like. And Twyla, the sweet innocent waitress at the cafe, looks at Alexis with these big doe eyes and says, "You do this every time before you go out?" And Alexis, in her normal styles, tapping at the table they're sitting at, said, "No, I do this every night." Thinking to myself, wow, I want that energy, right? Like, I want that energy to know that on a Sunday night that I would make dinner and be like totally made up to also go at the same time, right? Like, just for myself, and that kind of Alexis thought. And so I was thinking to myself, wow, that's some amazing self-care and some dedication to self-care that Alexis has. But also, how important is self-care for us? Like, to be the best person for ourselves, and to be the best person for those that we love, and to be the best, you know, work employee or boss, or however we contribute to the economic situation. And I think self-care takes 1,000 different forms, right? Like, I know for me, it could be everything from making sure I do my skincare regime to spending time with the puppies to learning to say no to invitations. What is your favorite way, Cy, for self-care? Like, what's your default self-care method if you are having a crappy day and you know you need to find yourself and just pause? What's your go-to?
It's funny because I've never thought of it as self-care, but in the way that you posed the question, mine is actually just sitting at the piano and just playing anything. And especially if I get to sing something, it just it just changes everything for me. It centers me, it grounds me in where I am, it grounds me in my body, it makes me feel alive, and it also makes me just feel at ease because my mind is not going a million miles a minute thinking about other things. I have to think about playing this piano, my voice is occupied, my brain is occupied, my body's occupied, and so it all brings it into alignment for me. And it gives me just kind of joy and like a little spark of energy in me. It just activates that. So that really is like my best self-care hack. It's like and just frankly just taking showers is that sounds so simple, I guess, but I love the water and I don't know, just being alone with no devices
Yeah.
in the water. Like that's also a thing. Like I feel like it's so hard to unplug and like being in water. Like I've really been thinking about doing more swimming because I'm like, this is just one way like you cannot have a device in front of you. It's the best. So
Right.
those two things are probably the things that most kind of shake me out of my head and just get me reconnected for sure.
My go-to is a cup of coffee in a cup with a saucer. And even though I take my coffee black, it's the sound of the
Mm,
spoon around the porcelain cup. And I know it goes back to having afternoon fika coffee with my grandparents, and
mm,
that smell of coffee is universal. And that sound, I could
mhm.
hear my grandparents like stirring their coffee and the spoon hitting the side of the cups and thinking, yep,
Wow.
like that's where I transport myself to it. It like everything falls away. But I think you touched on something, and it's that it has to take in like multiple senses, right? To like
Mm,
focus you. At least for me, it helps that it's multiple senses that are like
yep.
captivated at that moment.
Absolutely, yeah. And I didn't even reflect on that, but it's definitely something that I think most of us struggle with today. Um,
Hmm.
I joke that like my attention, my focus is an issue, like maybe a diagnosable one. But I really feel like everyone is struggling with this. I mean, it actually shows in the statistics that you read. Like I do some communications work, and there's a lot about how people are not going to read something that takes more than 2 minutes nowadays, or like you have to get your point out in the first 5 seconds of this video, or it's just amazing how we have all been kind of um, you know, programmed in a way to split our attention, and to try to take in the most information in the smallest amount of time. I mean, there's an information overload, and I really think that it's a shared experience that we're going through right now, where everybody is trying to navigate it and trying to navigate all this information era, right? Like this is probably the most information any human being has been exposed to in all of history at the
And
same time. And so, yeah, it's a challenge, you know?
I feel like culturally too in the United States, it
Mm,
was so like exalted to be overly busy or to be
yep,
constantly on the hustle, which is a word that I personally
on the hustle,
disdain
yeah. And
because
a side
hustle,
hustle and a third hustle. Yeah.
and I don't get it. Like, this is where my foreigner side comes in. 'Cause I'm like, I don't understand why you're using the word hustle, which by definition means stealing and grifting. Like, how did that become the choice word for this? But I'm like digressing. But at the same time, I feel like our culture in the United States is such that, you know, either you're working yourself to the bone and you're multitasking in this kind of like puritanical way where it also has to be suffering at the same time, right? And that
Mm,
it's
mm.
selfish to spend time on yourself. And
Yes,
at least that's how
all
I
that,
feel it has been
all that.
conveyed. And
No,
it's
yes,
so
all
weird,
that.
right? Like,
It it's so psychological and it's so socialized, and it's important for us to reflect on that and to know where those things are coming from, because most often it's, by nature of those things, automatic. Most of the
yeah,
things we do are, from signals that we get from the others around us and society at large, and our behavior often molds to fit that expectation, right? And so yes, you're saying those expectations are coming from a deep history, a rooted history here in the US, that Puritan history, frankly, yeah, like you said. And it does impact us to this day, and the more we have access to all of this information and this, I mean, computer technology generally, I feel like, have we been intentional about what it means, and what the purpose of it is? Or have we just kind of adopted all of this technology to really push us to maybe something we don't even necessarily, you know, want or think is valuable, but as a society, we're being pushed to do that, right? Without really thinking about it too much either. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think all of that is it's very complex human reaction, um, to societal expectations that are deeply rooted. And the first thing is we have to essentially give ourselves permission because it feels like we haven't been given this to take care of
Exactly.
ourselves. Like, first and foremost, do we feel like it's important? Do we feel like it is valid? Do we feel like we deserve it, that we're worthy of it? um, that it's okay, that we're safe to do it. All of these are very real questions for people now during the pandemic, probably more than ever.
And I'm thinking about like kind of some of these practical steps. Like first, it's the permission, or maybe before that, it's the questioning who made up these rules and
Mhm,
why should we
mhm.
have to adhere to them. And then it's the giving ourselves permission to do it. And then it's how in the world do we do it? Because you've been
Yeah,
conditioned for years not to do it.
yep,
So how do you
yep,
take that step forward? I mean, that's like a big step, right? To acknowledge the fact that something you've been told not to do, either consciously or subconsciously, you're now realizing you need to do for your own
sur
well-being.
and survival, frankly, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have to recognize that many people are struggling just to stay alive right now in the pandemic in multiple ways, including um, in the self-care way, right? Taking care of your body, your mind, your spirit. It's an extra challenging time. I think we all have seen that. And I really think we're at a crisis level, and it's just very important for us to think how to work through this. So, to your point, I think yes, the first step is recognizing where is it coming from and why, because reflection is so important in understanding how to solve your problem. If you don't know the problem, you don't know how to solve it, right? You can't begin to imagine how to solve it. And so I love that we're exploring, like, where is this coming from? Where is it rooted in? Just checking ourselves on is this something that I value? Is this something that society is valuing? Do I agree with it? Challenging it, finding it and recognizing it, and then challenging it, and then moving to a place where you have to determine, not only what's best for you, but what is important to you, right? And to your point, I think that there's a lot of ways that you could look at that based on your own individual life. Is it important for you to be healthy in your body, in your mind, in your spirit? Is it important for you to be well for others? Are you taking care of somebody in your life that depends on you? Do you want to be the best person at work? I mean, I think even that is so interesting that we're being pushed to do something that's unhealthy and that will
Hmm.
eventually really deter or to take away from our work and how much we could really accomplish there. Uh, so we're in the short term being really conditioned or being encouraged to act against our own self-interest, where in reality, if we were all to take care of ourselves really well and take care of each other, allow each other, the space and the encouragement and the stigma-free environment to take care of ourselves, that would actually be better for everyone in the long run, including in the workplace. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about all those studies about how people are more productive if they have a short nap or they have an afternoon
Mm,
break, and
yep.
or just these like modern approaches that businesses are taking, where I think it's mostly in the UK, where moving to a 4-day work week just to
Mhm.
see how productivity increases. And the data that's coming out now showing that employees were more productive working from home than they were in the office environment, which makes sense. I mean, think about it. Think how much time you spend just like chit chatting with your office mates as
Mhm.
opposed to like doing your work.
Deep
And
work.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that one is better than the other, and they're both necessary. But I think we definitely, as individuals, need it to be a better society. Like, if we're
Yeah.
not our best selves, how are we a better society?
Yeah. And just affording people the flexibility. I mean, I think the thing that is so devastating is that we have been living in such a rigid system for so long, right? It's
Mhm.
so, oh gosh, dramatically rigid. I mean, think about the industrial revolution and the factory work and the
Oh my
whistles and
god.
like literally just like, almost making robots out of people. It's
Well,
just, it's obviously not sustainable. Oh, yes.
Didn't Henry Ford or one of those big industrials discourage his employees from having sex because he thought it took away
Mm.
too much energy and focus from the work? I'm like, this is some
Talk
high
about
level
overreach.
puritanical stuff, right? Like, and I'm
Oh man. Oh man. I can't. Oh yeah. And but I mean that's what's so intriguing because, that was the norm. Like we have to
right?
recognize where we're coming from. This was the norm. This was not one guy with one factory. This was the model that everybody
Yeah.
took up. The assembly line, are you kidding me? Like it's legendary for the influence that it had on industry. And so um it's there. It's very there, and it's not that long ago. It's really not that long ago. It's still today. I mean, look at Amazon.
That's what I
Look
was
at
just thinking. Like,
Amazon.
the new assembly
Mhm.
line is the warehouse worker.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep, and it's still happening today. Maybe even, I mean, some could argue even maybe worse in the fact that it's, all of these computer data systems have really what's the word, just captured all of I mean, every minuscule minute of productivity to the point where
Yeah.
efficiencies are over well-being. Efficiencies are being prioritized over human well-being. And
And the
that
tracking of individuals, right?
yes,
Like, you
every
can't stop for
step.
water, and you can't stop to use the
No,
restroom, like, that's insane.
absurdities, like literally humanity is being lost in the workplace,
Yeah.
on that level. And in so many other levels. I mean, think about all of our essential workers and all the people on the front lines during COVID, um, and what that really means, what that really, really means, who we decided was dispendable. I mean, these are real choices we made as a society, and I'm
Mhm.
just posing the question of like, let's look at what we decided. You decide whether you think it is right or wrong, but um, at the end of the day, the reason I'm saying all of those things is to just set the table for what we're talking about today and have an understanding that this is our reality today. This is what's happening today, not even back, at the beginning of the Henry Ford
Right?
factories. This is right now. This is what's happening with so many people. And, I think Tessa and I are speaking from a privileged space of, being able to be, I don't know what we call it nowadays, but like desk jockeys, computer workers,
Right.
I call myself a little cyborg sometimes because I feel like that.
I call
That's
myself a
the work that
trained
we do.
monkey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's what we that's where we operate, where we are not in a warehouse. I was in the service industry for 10 years, so I deeply relate and empathize with the folks still on the front lines today. Like that is our reality, that there's a huge, array of different experiences being had right now. But the one thing we all have in common is that we're still all being encouraged and signaled to to be, overworked, if that is
Mhm.
a term we can all agree on, to the detriment of our own personal self-care. And that's what we're talking about today is how do you how do you find self-care in a world that wants you to be a working robot? That is I think that's probably something we could all relate to at this point.
You're right, and I totally acknowledge that we do come from a privileged standpoint, but I will also give some praise to our fellow office dwellers and that
Mhm.
we have all become susceptible to 24/7 work hours because,
Absolutely.
it's always some colleague or boss who's calling or
Mhm.
emailing late at night, early in
Texting,
the morning,
messaging.
texting,
Mhm.
which led Portugal recently to pass a law that said it is prohibited to contact your employees when they are not on the job.
Yes, yes, Portugal. I wish we had sound effects. We should implement sound effects so
We
we
should.
could like yes, yes,
Hmm.
Portugal. That's what I'm talking about. And that's another question we can think about. I mean, there's so many ways to have this discussion. We could talk about the policy side of things. We could talk about the individual side of things. We could talk about the community, family, household, workplace. I mean, it's everything. It touches everyone, especially in a society like ours where work is so central to our identities, to our
Yeah.
income, to our health, literally in every
Hmm.
way. Um, it's all encompassing for most people, and so, I promise we're gonna actually talk about self-care, but that is all of that is just a bit of the backdrop against which we're tackling this topic
Yeah.
today, and just recognizing the challenges that so many of y'all, are facing out there in the world.
So let's talk about the fun stuff. Like I'm trying to think of all
Mhm.
the different ways that I have indulged in self-care throughout the years. See, I think I tried calligraphy for a while,
Oh,
which is
really?
a really challenging. Like I was not particularly good at it. I think it's because we don't write so much
I
anymore.
know. Oh, my hand cramps up, and it's bad because I need to write for what I do. It's ridiculous.
I also become obsessive about organizing things at
Mhm.
times. But like my besides the coffee, which is the immediate self-care, uh,
Mhm.
gardening, the dogs, baking. I do enjoy baking,
Mm.
and mostly yeast breads because it forces you to stop and take a lot of time, right? Like cookies are instant gratification, but if you're baking a bread, it's like, how do I get the dough to the right point? And then you have to rise it, then you have to shape it, let it rise again. And, it's an all day kind of event. And I think about all my
Mm.
relatives throughout history who like
Right.
spent their essential days baking
Right.
bread because
Right.
it took so much time.
Oh,
And
man,
how
we could
now it's
talk
like a
all about
treat,
that. Yeah. That's a whole other
right? Like,
topic. It's just
like
like,
they
why
were
do we
so
have so much
they
time to be in our heads? This is why.
yeah, my relatives in
Wow.
Sweden were thinking about survival, and I'm like, how
Yes.
do I treat myself by
Yeah.
baking
Yeah.
bread?
Yeah. Yeah,
What's
I had
what's
that
the other
very,
stuff?
like, big tie to my ancestors when I went to the farm with my grandma who was still doing farm work in her, I don't know, 60s. Um, yes, I just thought about the same thing, like, this takes so much time and energy, and I'm exhausted after 5 hours of doing the light work, and I don't understand how in the world the people are able to do this day in and day out. And then on top of that, I mean, if you actually see some of these, I mean, I have to go look at videos because it's like nobody does this. My grandma makes tamales, which can be definitely an
Mm,
all day thing. But I mean, one day I watched a video of someone making mole from scratch, and it was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, like it was a whole thing. It was an incredibly big production, and it was just like painstaking, and every ingredient that goes into there, everything from scratch, everything from like their farm. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
we are so, yeah, we're in such a different world. It's so intriguing. I'm sorry, I had to sidebar on that, but please continue.
No, no, no. I was just thinking my spouse also made mole from scratch a few weeks ago, and I'm like, wow. Well, this is a
Yeah.
benefit of the holidays because he took the time to do that. But also, right after we got
Oh.
married, I took him to Sweden to meet my family. And we went to visit one of my great aunts who lived in the country, like your grandmother did. She had moved into the smaller house on their farm, and her daughter was in the larger house. And we walked in, and my great aunt was at the time like 85, and her kitchen,
Mm,
which was pretty expansive because, in Sweden, the kitchen is very important,
mm.
and I would say she probably had 10 feet of open counter space, and it was all covered with breads that she had baked that morning. And
Oh
we
my
were there mid
gosh.
afternoon, and Jake's like,
Oh my
why?
gosh.
How is your 85-year-old aunt baking more bread that we can produce? I'm like, uh, welcome to Sweden.
That is bananas. It's amazing. And I mean, it's so interesting that that's the first thing you talk about because there was this whole like I mean, we have to recognize there was like a whole sourdough movement during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Like this was
Mhm.
a thing. But I think it's interesting because it's it's so much more than just self-care. Like I think that there's a reason that happened and just from what we just talked about, it feels like it's partly because there was a reconnection that people wanted to.
You
Um,
know, it's funny you
yeah.
say that because sometimes I wonder, is self-care not actually
Mm,
self-care, but is it just stopping to enjoy life? Like, did
mm,
we get the life
mm.
sucked out of us so much that
Yes,
we're just
yes.
learning to, like, how
Yeah,
to enjoy
reconnecting with
life?
ourselves. No, yeah, I totally
Yeah.
feel that way, honestly. Especially when I play any kind of music, I'm like, "Oh, this is who I am." And,
Mhm.
I don't get to be that person most of my life. And so, I think you're right. I think that's part of it, like reconnecting with yourself and reconnecting with what brings you joy in your life. And frankly, I mean, I feel like COVID has, for so many people, and I'll speak for myself in my own experience, it has been, one of those things that you could never imagine, but has challenged every step of the way of you enjoying life. And I am one that, is like carpe diem, like I'm always looking for a way to enjoy life in every way that I can, every chance that I get. Um, but wow, the challenges that COVID presented, especially when you find joy in other people, gathering, just doing the things that, I mean, even going to the gym for some people, that's self care. And that was not even an option for so many months. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, I love, going out, going to new restaurants and things like that. I mean, that it's just not it wasn't an option for so long. Especially the family thing I think had to be hardest for so many people. So many people are just going to see their family for the first time now or before Omicron maybe, but it's amazing to me that honestly, we've been able like, so many people have been able to get through this long because it has to be one of the biggest challenges for so many people's lives of just completely upending what you had as a routine, right? Like, we are creatures of habit. So when we talk about self-care and making time to even reconnect with yourself or do what brings you joy, that is usually something that people have baked into their lives as a routine, and COVID upended all of that and made it impossible for you to do the things that you were used to doing and that you were defaulted to doing and that you had, routine in your life, and we're just creatures of habit. So that's makes me especially empathetic to everyone that had to struggle through that.
You know, I also think of it as COVID as an opportunity to find new forms of self-care. Like think of all the people who
Hmm.
rediscovered, the sourdough, or they started buying houseplants, or they started gardening if they had access to a yard or a plot to garden in. Or I think I read that the number of animals that were adopted
Mm, yep.
were increased during COVID. I hope that all those animals still have lovely homes and that that wasn't
Hmm.
temporary. But I like to think, as challenging as COVID is, it also provides an opportunity to find new ways to think about self-care that perhaps wasn't at the forefront
Hmm.
of our thoughts. Like I have a friend who has gotten into painting recently because that was what
Mm.
was available to her, right? Like, is it a way for creatives to find new
Hmm.
creative outlets? I know I have been very thankful for the protest music that came out during COVID. I really enjoy it, but I'm also a fan of protest music in general.
Hmm. Same. And also, yeah, I agree because the one thing that I will say, for people that were, had the privilege of having more time to themselves in their home, away from all the sometimes what could be really distractions from yourself, is that I think that just generally there has been a lot more space and opportunity for just simple like self reflection. or spending a lot of time with ourselves. Maybe a little
Yes,
bit more quiet. I mean, I'm sure people, a lot of people have found a lot of distractions, but at the same time, it's like when you run out of those, you're left with yourself. And, quiet self-reflection, I think, is so important to mental wellness. And so maybe it served people. I think for some people it was not helpful, especially people dealing with mental health conditions. It might have been harmful, but I hope for a lot of people that they were able to just take time for themselves to be with themselves. I think that can be a really positive and empowering time to have in your life.
I agree. And I hope that also people found new communities, right? Like I know
Mm.
before people were used to meeting in person, but have you found new communities that provide access to the support system that you need, either with virtual meetings or texting or apps that provide that kind of feedback that you might need? Like, I
And
hope that it's
access
become
generally, yeah.
opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, there has been more access. I would say just anecdotally that, a lot of things going virtually. I know that I have to recognize that there are technology access issues that were born out of, COVID or exacerbated by COVID for people that don't have access to full technology resources. But for those that do, there were also access increases in like healthcare, for example, not
Hmm.
having to do transportation and being able to meet with your doctor over a virtual meeting. I'm an attorney, so it's Tessa, but I have so many friends that were doing Zoom court for indigent folks or folks living with low income.
Hmm.
And it was amazing to me that, these folks just, needed the computer and the Wi-Fi. And if we could make sure they have that, they could be in court because I've seen so many people, especially folks struggling financially, that just were denied access to the court system because they simply could not make it there for a lot of different reasons and mostly financial reasons, right? So, access, I think, is an interesting thing that, yeah, has really come out of this in a way that people have challenged themselves in connecting regardless of whether or not they can see each other in person and maybe like agencies and organizations and corporations and different people that would always command that everyone come to them physically to get whatever services they were delivering. I mean, it just
I
sounds
like the way
absurd
you
at this
phrase that.
point.
Yeah.
That they have had to rethink that and they wouldn't have, right? I think we can all
Right.
recognize they probably would
Yeah.
not have done that. And I know they would not have done that for very legacy
Yeah.
places, especially like courthouses, for example. But for this necessitation of the pandemic. Now, whether or not we will be able to keep all of that access going, I think that ends up actually being kind of another fight to fight another day. But it's very interesting, and I think the power of like knowing that it's a possibility is extremely significant.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that when we get through this pandemic or it becomes endemic and we just learn to live with it
Mm,
all, that we take some of the self-care hacks that we've learned during COVID and move them forward with us, and also learn to like say no, right? Because think of
mhm,
all those things you get asked during a work day, and maybe it's scary to say no, but is your day really more efficient by having 35 meetings? Or is your day more
mm,
efficient to accomplish the task that you got paid to accomplish? It's
yeah,
it's the whole mindset change. And I know it's not only us that has to make those decisions. It's a system many times that has to change. It's harder to change a system, easier to change us, and to find our ways to indulge in self-care in a way that is not selfish. And we all deserve to indulge ourselves,
yeah,
and we need to
absolutely.
learn to accept that that's okay, right? Like, I'm just thinking about all this, like puritanical books that I read through the years of
Yes.
how horrible employers were. And I'm like, is indulge the right word? And I'm like, no, Tessa, you are not a puritanical person. You're the immigrants. You should know that it is okay to indulge in self care.
So interesting though, like even the language that we use, it's so interesting,
Yeah.
right? It's so revealing of how we really feel about the topic and guilty pleasures. What are guilty pleasures?
Oh,
Like,
I
I
hate
mean,
that expression.
what
Oh,
is
that expression.
that? Because what, you're eating a piece of chocolate? That's like no, you can have chocolate, you're a grown woman. It's just
That and I mean, talk
ridiculous.
about how fucked up your view of food is if that's what you're thinking.
Yes, absolutely, like, you have to be guilty, it's so laden with shame. I mean, that's what we're really talking about, it's laden with shame,
Yeah,
and it's the same thing in the workplace. Do you feel ashamed because you needed a nap? You shouldn't.
right.
I think that's the message today that we want to really embolden everyone with is, don't I mean, I don't wanna say don't, I wanna say feel empowered and feel emboldened and feel within every right of your being a human being to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, because every one of us is so different with entirely
Hmm.
different lived experiences, bringing them all to this space, in this case, maybe in a workspace that we're sharing, and we have to have empathy for one another and for ourselves because
Yeah.
all of that messaging is real. And so, what I used to tell my sisters, this was a really simple example I can give. Both of my sisters, they just like I was were conditioned to be worker bees. Like that's just how I'll put it. We grew up in the Rust Belt, we grew up in factory town, and that's how we were conditioned to think. Like you have to be a hard worker, you have to work all the time, you have to keep working, work harder. And I remember with both of them, I just said, "Hey, you need to take some time for yourself." Um, I think one of them I said, you need, maybe to think about going to therapy. Like therapy is so good for you. It will just make you feel like you have this time to talk to somebody, to confide in somebody, and just, it's like just taking time for yourself. And it's just a very
Yeah.
intentional way of taking time for yourself. And that's it. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And they said, I don't have time to go to therapy. And I said, if you don't have 1 hour a week for yourself, something is very, very wrong. And
Yeah.
that stuck with both of them because it's true, right? We put hours, dozens and dozens of hours into work. We put dozens of hours into keeping our home and our body and all of these other things upkept. And that's, maybe it's necessary. Maybe that is your life right now. But if you can't carve out 1 hour of time for yourself and for your self care, um, something is not okay. And I think that that's where we get into talking about, healthy boundaries, and
Hmm.
are all circumstances negotiable right now in your life? Maybe not. And I can completely relate to that. I've worked, several jobs at the same time. I was a student working. I understand that it might not feel like you can do that, but you can say no to that party, or you can say no to a family member that is taking all of your energy and time, or a friend that you think is a friend that is, needs you. You need yourself too. And you have to find that time to carve out. And it could literally be you want to make yourself a home cooked meal, and that
Yeah.
replenishes you and makes you feel great about yourself and gives you the time to just have a moment alone and be reflective. It could be anything, it could take any form, but prioritize yourself. Prioritize yourself. And I think that can apply to everyone in any station in life.
Absolutely. And I also think don't judge yourself for your forms of self care, right? It's like just
Mm,
because, you know, George over here has decided to grow peaches and apples and pears
mhm.
and, you know,
And it looks so
If your form
beautiful on
of
Instagram.
and it
Yeah.
looks right, but if your form of self-care is a face mask and, trimming your cuticles, well, like, I don't think you're supposed to do that anymore, and filing your nails, and more power to you, right? Or if your self-care is you're going to cook at home, or if your self-care is just, I'm finally gonna sit down and sort through the mail, whatever
Yes,
it needs to be, it's okay.
yes,
Just know that
yes,
you're doing it for yourself.
absolutely. Comparison is the thief of all joy. I love that saying.
It's
So,
a great
yeah,
expression.
yes, we cannot compare ourselves to other because again, we're all unique, beautiful individuals with rich, diverse, complex mosaics of experience. I mean, we're just all incredibly different. And so, um, I think if you don't have any ideas, of course, like look to others for inspiration, but do what makes you, feel like some little spark of joy, something that really speaks to you. Don't do something because somebody else is doing it. That's a great point. Um, but I mean, I honestly think that a lot of people are constantly in the struggle. You talked about the hustle earlier, and I totally get actually why that word is used. But it's interesting that no matter what we call it, we all feel it. We all
Yeah.
feel we all feel the push from behind us to keep it going, keep going faster, keep
Mhm.
doing more, keep and we could get into all kinds of conversations about, the ego and all of those different saving face and all that good stuff. But the most important thing I think from this conversation is first just make the time and space for yourself. If you don't have something that you do every day for you, make that time and space. I can share that, I never wanted to make time for like skincare. I was just like, I'll just like use something in the shower for my face and I'm done. And I didn't want to. I'm just like, I like to stay up late. I like to go to bed when I'm tired. I don't want to do anything else. But it is so nice, and I feel like I'm one of those people that I didn't listen to before, but I hope somebody does. I hope somebody hears this and maybe this is something that you would really like to do, but taking a moment for yourself before you go to bed for me has been really, really nice. Just like I literally close the door. I'm like, I need a moment from anyone
Mhm.
that wants to interrupt me. Need a little moment, use warm water, um, and just have a little time, a little routine of just, it's makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself, you're connecting with your body in a way, all the senses again, to Tessa's point. Um, it does make me feel really great before going to bed, just feeling clean and moisturized and, just like the richness of that. Um, and literally just having a moment of kind of like silence before bed. And I mean, it could literally be even that, just like turning your phone to silent before you go to bed or reading a book. I started doing that. I go to sleep instantly because reading makes me sleepy. But I realized that that's a great thing. If reading makes me sleepy, I'll read right before
Yeah.
bed and then I will fall asleep. And so
I
I mean, it's all those little things of just recognizing what makes you feel good and then making time and space in your day. I argue for daily routine to
oh,
incorporate it so that it's
absolutely.
always there.
I have a skincare hack that is, I can't believe I'm about to admit to this. That's how I think maybe sad or embarrassing it could be. But sometimes even I like when I don't feel like I have the adequate amount of
Hmm.
time to devote to like quality skincare, on a shelf in the WC, I keep one of those jade rollers and some face oil. So like even when you're on the
Mm.
loo, you could like roll your face and oil it,
Oh,
knowing that
nice.
right, like it's a
Oh,
little
that's
bizarre
good.
multitasking, but it's effective because it's
But you're
there and
fitting
you
it
can't be doing
in.
anything else. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I love that actually because the water thing is really the thing that gets you. You gotta dry, you gotta use the water. It's a whole thing. But if you have something, I love that. I'm gonna steal that for sure. How fun. Yes, we need a weekly self-care hack now. I think that's gonna be a thing, Tessa.
I'm glad I started with the, like, most embarrassing one I could think of. Yes, do keep a jade roller and some oil by your toilet. That's what's
We
going to
are
work for
about
you.
vulnerability over here at the Uplift. Absolutely. We are getting all the way into vulnerability and away from any shame, and we are leading by example. Absolutely. I wish
Yes.
I had something like that. I'm gonna have to think. I'll bring it to y'all next week. Do I have an embarrassing life hack I need to share with the world? I'm gonna think of it.
Okay. Oh,
But it's
wow.
so good. I mean, I think the other thing, in the spirit of the uplift, we've talked a lot about self-care and really that's a way to lift yourself, lift up your own spirits,
Yeah,
lift up your mental health and well-being, lift up your, sense of just being in your body and being connected to joy and being connected to yourself and your true self, your true authentic self. And then I think also in consider, is self-care just for the self? I I don't know. I would say this too. I mean, it can be the opposite. But for me, I feel really great when I help others like just work out some stuff. It's kind of like a weird philosophy thing where you're like, are you being altruistic? No, it makes me feel good to help other people. But
right.
but yeah, like, it like lift like just having that positive wellness perspective and sharing it with others can actually do good for you. It makes me think of actually philanthropic giving. That's, the field that I am in, and how, giving actually increases your like health and lifespan, and so it does good to you by doing good for others. And so I just wanted to add that, maybe for you that's what that looks like. Maybe it's spending time with your sister and hearing her and being there with her and supporting each other. Maybe it's a symbiotic thing. Maybe you have a best friend that just talking something out with, is self care for both of you. It doesn't necessarily have to just be an alone thing. It could be something that is with other folks, or other people in your life that are important to you. Um, but just be careful. Just make sure that it's enriching and not taking away. It's okay to, it's okay to give. But when we're talking about self care, make sure it's something that is giving you life.
And as the I was raised by socialists, be frank, and I also think of self-care in this kind of utilitarian way, in that by being our best selves, we become better members of society. And so when we
Mm,
improve ourselves, and we uplift ourselves and we uplift those around us, or it's increasing to the
mm-hmm.
point where we are uplifting society and creating a better society. And if that is
Yes,
a form of self-care, I think we need to embrace it in the United States and
absolutely.
shed our
Absolutely.
puritanical ways to be like, this is something that is good for us and good for us as a society.
Oh, yes, I love that. And how much in desperate need are we of that? And so
Right.
you are doing a civic duty by taking care of yourself. We're just adding that to the layers of why you should engage. So absolutely, definitely just reflect, on where you are, why you are practicing what you're practicing, and just take a quick look, like, are you making time and space to take care of you? I think that it's
Yeah.
something I've seen over and over again in the people that I love, where it's so easy not to. It's so easy to follow all those signals and be the sacrificial one, the one that takes care of everyone else. We kind of have a joke where like Mexican mothers never eat because they're always warming tortillas for everybody else. And so, and it's true. I mean, to the literal point of like, I go to my mom's house, I'm like, did you eat? Like everyone has to eat, including you. So it's that kind of thing of like literally just taking a step back, and making sure that there's that time and space in your life for you. We want to see everyone in this community, everyone in this world, have that ability and have that priority because as Tessa said, it's your civic duty actually.
Now I have these images of like Cold War posters in my head, but
Let's
I'm gonna
make
try to
them.
shed those.
No, I love it. That could be our merch. You can do it. Take care of
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
I
now at
love
this point
it.
in time, we could merch the shelf for your toilet room so that you can have your whatever your self care is in there.
The
Oh
self-care
wow.
roller.
Yes.
I love it. Oh,
Which is
well,
both
this is
for all
yeah.
genders, let me know.
Yes, 100%. Everyone has skin. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Well, I am feeling really inspired actually. I am going to make sure to carve out some time on this Saturday where I have no plans. I will admit one thing is I tend to fill up my calendar as a default. Even when I'm not working, it's a thing of like, uh-oh, I don't have anything to do this day. I have to make plans. And the beauty of having no plans is really nice. Sometimes things get canceled. I feel so relieved, like, oh, I get to have this time now. It's so nice. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago when I did start, because I'm an overscheduler, what worked for me was schedule time for yourself. And that's why I
Yeah.
shared that advice with other people, where I literally, for me, it's literal. I am putting blocks of time on my calendar. Like, this is time just to just sit at my piano. This is time just to unwind before bed, or whatever. And so that's just another little practical tip that maybe that works for you if you're an overscheduler and calendar junkie like I am.
Like this idea of winding down our conversations by sharing like what self-care are we doing today or how are we
Hmm.
spending our days, right? I know I'm
Yeah.
going to make some lemon curd with some lemons I have, and then
Mm.
for the hopes of baking this bread that my husband likes that has a layer of like cream cheese and then lemon curd and then it's a braided bread on top of it. He doesn't know I'm
My
going to do that,
self-care
so
my self-care is gonna be coming to your house and eating all of these amazing things that you're making. That will be my regular routine.
because I am like that tortilla making woman who loves to bake and like wants to see the enjoyment in other people when they eat it. It's like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
reason I do it.
Aw, I love that, and that's what I mean, like, it could literally be different for every person. I am definitely
Yeah.
the enjoyer one when it comes to the kitchen, but one day, I wanna get back to baking too, and there's just, I think another thing is, like, oh, just one last thing. I know we're going long, but one last thing. We're in the new year, and people make so many New Year's resolutions about all the things that they have as goals. And I just want to like recognize that I am definitely a person that is always thinking about personal and professional goals, and having way too many. Way too many in the way that they're not all achievable, like probably in the immediate future. But um, I just want to encourage people to beware that, just because you have this like lofty goal and you're not accomplishing it like tomorrow, um, know that that is so different than self-care in the way that, you can start today. Start small. Start with
Hmm.
anything. Just start with making time for yourself. If, I here's another thing that's not embarrassing, but just a very practical, interesting thing from me. I know meditation helps me a lot. And I
Same.
don't do it. I don't do it because I make all these excuses in my head, like I have too many things on my calendar to do. I have too many other things I got to get to. Now it's time for dinner. Now it's time for this. I didn't know how to start, and we could have a whole conversation about habit formation, which is really important. I started reading a book on it. I'm obsessed with the idea because it really does work for me. Like I'm definitely a creature for habit, speaking for myself. So what I did was I decided every day I get home from work, I'm never going to be a person that meditates for like an hour. or I'm never going to have this luxurious thing. And I think that's what New Year's resolutions often look like. Like, I'm going to do this
Yeah.
for an hour. I'm going to work out 3 times a week or whatever. Um, Start small. What I did was I tied this habit to another one. So every time I got home from work, I went straight to I call it my dressing room, and I just sat there for 5 minutes. I did a 5-minute meditation. And, to my earlier point to everyone else, it's easier to give advice than to take it, right? I would tell them, if you don't have an hour for yourself, something's wrong. So in my mind, I told myself, if you don't have 5 minutes for yourself, something is really wrong. And so that's how I was able to just push through this new habit of like, take 5 minutes, something so small, and start there. And it really made all the difference in the world. And so, again, it doesn't have to be even an hour a day or an hour a week. It could be something as small as just a few minutes of something that really does work for you.
Absolutely. And I think a good reminder also that it doesn't have to be regimented, right? Like you don't have to follow the
Right.
strict rules of meditation or the strict rules of
No,
a workout schedule. Fit it in where you can fit it in, right? Like
absolutely.
if you find your meditation in petting your dog, there you have it. Or if you find your workout in doing like bicep curls while you're carrying your groceries into the house, whatever it is, figure it out. It's going to be okay. And there's no
Yeah,
judgment in how you choose to do it.
absolutely right. Yes, and just keep and also you're gonna fail too. So like whatever you think is a success, whatever success looks like for you, it's probably not that. It's probably gonna not work out exactly the way that you have in mind right now. So just keep trying. The most important thing is to just keep making yourself a priority, even if that changes, even if it looks different than you envision, even if it's different than somebody else's version of self care. Just keep going because also it can change, right? Like self care
Yeah.
for me today might be meditation, self care for me tomorrow might be swimming or whatever. I mean, just keep going and do not judge yourself. Keep allowing yourself just, every reason to prioritize yourself because you're really important to you and to the rest of the world.
And to us, I have to
Hmm.
say, because we appreciate that you're here and we believe you can do anything. And I know that I believe that Cynthia can conquer the entire world. So I believe on that note,
On that
I am
note,
so glad. I'm so glad everybody's been here and that we're all now hopefully a little more uplifted than we were at the beginning of this conversation. I know I certainly am.
same, same. And I feel the same about you, Tessa, for sure. And I know that as a community, we really can change the world, and it actually all starts with our mentality, and that's what we're changing today in our perspectives and our like shared understanding of what is good and right in the world. And so let's do it all together. Thank you all so much for listening and being part of this community, and take care.
Thank you. Talk to you next time.
Bye, Tessa.